everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're diving into a true Hollywood icon, Jennifer Aniston. We could easily spend like the entire time just talking about Friends, but
Right.
you know, everyone's done that to death by now, right?
Right.
We're here to go way deeper than that. Beyond the iconic haircut and the catchphrases, we're really trying to understand Aniston's lasting impact on really all of us. So to guide our deep dive today, we're checking out this article. It's called Jennifer Aniston, The Evolution of a Beloved Star. And my big question going into this is, why does Jennifer Aniston still resonate with so many people after all these years? Like, what's the secret to her staying power?
Well, and that's the fascinating thing, right? Her career isn't just this highlight reel of like big roles, but it really is kind of a masterclass in how to navigate Hollywood and how to change and reflect kind of the changing culture as you go.
I love that. It's like she's grown and evolved alongside all of us. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. Let's go back to 1994. Friends premieres. And it's just a completely different world back then. No social media. People are watching TV totally differently. And the article mentions this rise of what they call like yuppie culture. So how did Friends tap into that? And how did Aniston's character Rachel become this huge phenomenon?
Well, if you think about the anxieties of the 90s, people trying to find the right job, trying to navigate relationships in this world that's changing really fast. I think that Friends offered this comforting escape from all of that. And Rachel Green, with that iconic haircut and her struggles, she became kind of a poster child for that generation, the ones who were just trying to find their place in the world. And it wasn't just that she was fashionable, but she really did represent this aspiration and ambition. And I think that really resonated with a lot of people back then.
Yeah, and speaking of that iconic Rachel haircut, it's so funny that the article mentions that Aniston herself, she wasn't even that crazy about the hair pit. Like, she didn't love it. And it's kind of ironic how this thing that she didn't even intend to be this big trend became like the symbol of the entire decade.
Right. And, that is the funny thing about these big cultural touchdowns. They kind of take on a life of their own.
Totally.
And in this case, I think it just shows how something as simple as a hairstyle can represent a whole era. I mean, you really could not escape the Rachel back then, even if you wanted to.
It's wild. And it's amazing to me how a tiny detail from a show can become so, like, deeply ingrained in our memories. The article also mentions that a lot of people saw Friends as, like, a second family. What do you think about that? Is that just nostalgia, or was there something more to it?
I think it's deeper than nostalgia. Friends really provided this shared experience during a time when our culture was changing a lot. These characters, their apartments, even their jokes, they became this common language, this source of comfort for millions of people.
It's like every week they were inviting you to come have a cup of coffee with them at Central Perk. But Aniston didn't just stay in the world of sitcoms, right? This article talks about how she made this strategic move into movies, especially romantic comedies. So was that just a natural progression for her? Or was she trying to break out of that Rachel mold?
Yeah, it is interesting. When you think about it, romantic comedies seem like a pretty natural fit for somebody coming off a hit sitcom, right?
Yeah.
But you got to remember, typecasting is a real thing in Hollywood.
Oh, totally.
Choosing those rom-com roles, I think it was really strategic.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right. It let her use that same charm that made Rachel so popular. But in these new stories and these new characters, it let her build a whole movie career without, like, leaving her fans behind. And those rom-coms, they made a ton of money.
You're right. She was like the queen of romantic comedies for a while there. But the article mentions that some critics thought those roles were all kind of similar.
Yeah.
Like she was playing it safe a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the tough part for actors, right? You're always trying to find that balance. How do you give the audience what they want, but also challenge yourself and grow?
Right, right. And then she does the morning show. Which feels like such a different direction for her. The article definitely points to that as this like turning point in her career.
Yeah.
She's dealing with some really serious stuff in that show, like workplace issues and the #MeToo movement. It felt like a real statement.
It definitely did. It wasn't just another role.
Right.
It showed everybody that she was growing as an actor. The morning show let her play with totally different emotions. And more importantly, I think it really connected with people.
Totally.
Because it was dealing with these issues that so many people were facing in their own lives.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. We've talked about the Rachel and the rom-coms and now the morning show. And those are like three totally different moments in our culture. So how has she managed to stay relevant for so long, especially with how much the world has changed?
That is the million-dollar question. And I think it comes down to a few things. First of all, she's just really talented.
Yeah.
But on top of that, she's amazing at picking projects that people really connect with. Like, she has her finger on the pulse of what's going on in the world.
So she's not just choosing scripts,
No.
she's tapping into something deeper.
Exactly. She seems to really get what audiences want. And she's not afraid to take risks.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Friends captured that feeling of the 90s, that need for connection. Then the rom-coms played on her likability and her humor.
Right.
And that was at a time when those movies were huge. And then with the morning show, she takes on this really complex role, a role that's all about what it means to be a woman in today's world.
And she's done all of this while keeping her personal life pretty private. I mean, in the age of social media where everyone shares everything, she stayed really mysterious.
And honestly, that's another big reason why she's lasted so long.
You think so?
I do. She's created this very specific image for herself. Like, what you see is what you get. And in a world where so many people are trying to be someone they're not, that's really refreshing.
It's true. There's just something about her that feels genuine, like she's not putting on an act, which is probably why people are still so drawn to her after all these years.
Right. It takes a lot of smarts to pull that off.
Yeah.
Especially in Hollywood, where everyone wants to be in the spotlight all the time.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, would a show like Friends even be as big if it came out today? I mean, everything's so different now with streaming and social media.
That's a great question. I mean, a part of what made Friends so iconic was that everybody watched it together. You know? You had that feeling that everyone was tuning in at the same time,
Yeah.
talking about it the next day at work. It's hard to imagine that happening now with so many things to watch.
Totally. So maybe it was this perfect storm, you know, the timing and that ability to connect with people on a really deep level. This has been such a fascinating deep dive. So what's like the one big takeaway you want listeners to remember from Jennifer Aniston's career?
If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that it's so important to stay true to who you are, but also to be open to change.
I like that.
She's shown us that you don't have to be stuck in the past.
Right.
It's about growing and taking chances.
Exactly.
And always finding ways to connect with people.
And maybe trying out a new hairstyle every once in a while, even if you end up hating it.
Right. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, life's too short for a boring career and a boring hairstyle.